Hello, class. Today is the last section of Chapter 1, Section 3, and this is going to be the distance formula. Just like midpoint formula, this is going to be a formula that I'm going to give you, and after you kind of label your points x1, y1, and x2, y2, you should be able to just fill in the formula and get a final answer. But I do want to do a little explaining of how this formula works first. So what I'd like you to do is take a second and go ahead and plot these 2 points on your grid and label them. So if you remember, 3, 5 would be over 3 up 5, and B would be 0, doesn't go anywhere left or right, but down 3. So please try to remember that. So I'm just going to take these and put them here as if I labeled them. You should label them at least A and B. Now, the distance formula is referred to as length of a segment. They are exactly the same thing. If I asked you what is the distance of a segment, it would be the exact same thing as me saying what is the length of this segment. Well, if you can remember that this looks similar, if I pull this out and I put this right on top of where basically my points are, we kind of get this would be A and this would be B. And if I need to connect them, I have to make a right triangle. And using a right triangle, I could then use the fact that the horizontal distance, so if I just made a triangle with these guys, this here, and this here, and this here, I would know it's exactly the same picture. I would know that my horizontal distance along the top is a difference of 3 out, and that my vertical distance is 8 up or down. So if this is a right triangle, I know we haven't done this yet, and you are going to learn this in geometry, but some of you have already seen Pythagorean theorem. And if you've seen it already, you would know that to find the hypotenuse of a right triangle, we take the sides of the right triangle, which are 3 and 8, we square them. So it's 3 squared plus 8 squared, and equals x squared. We get 73 equals x squared, and then you have to take the square root to solve for x. So the distance between A and B in this case is 8.54. Now we could do that every time using Pythagorean theorem. But one, we haven't really even gotten to Pythagorean theorem, and two, there's an easier way instead of just using x1, y1 and x2, y2. So I want to show you what the distance formula is about. So on our second slide, here's our A and here's our B. They're exactly the same thing. I'm going to, first of all, give you the distance formula. And I put this in red because last time I checked some of your notes, you guys didn't actually even write down the midpoint formula. You wrote down my example, but never the formula. So I need you to write this down and understand that this is how we're going to find the distance formula, which if you can kind of relate, the changes in x, which is x2 minus x1, is our horizontal distance. And the changes in y's, y2 minus y1, is really my vertical distance. So all the distance formula is doing is Pythagorean theorem for you using the points. So let's practice using the distance formula. I'm going to delete that so we see the distance formula. First thing I do is I have my 2 points. I have A, which was 3, 5, and B, which is 0, negative 3. And the first thing I do is label them x1, y1, x2, y2. Now again, it doesn't matter which one you label that, but I just picked A first, then B. And then you're going to simply plug it in the distance formula. And things you have to be careful about the distance formula. There's a chance, because this is subtraction, that if I have a negative, you are subtracting a double negative along the way. So you just want to make sure you are watching negative signs. The other thing is that when you square something inside parentheses, it's always going to become positive. So never outside these terms, the difference of the x's or the difference of the y's, should you get a negative value. So even though 0 minus 3 is negative 3, I'm taking negative 3 and I'm squaring it. And if you're using the calculators in my class and you don't put that in parentheses, the calculator is going to say negative 9. So you have to be very careful and understand that you're taking negative 3 times negative 3, which is positive 9. Negative 3 minus 5, we add same change, or plus a negative, however you want to do it. So it does become negative 8. It's 9 plus 64, and the square root of 73, which is approximately 8.5. Oops, sorry. And if you recall, that's exactly what we got when we did it using Pythagorean theorem. So this is just basically an easier way to do Pythagorean theorem for you, and we're going to have to be able to know how to do it. So let's take a very basic example. I give you 2 points. I give you A and I give you B. I give you the formula, and I will give you the formula on tests and quizzes. I'm not requiring that you memorize it because on any other standardized test, it's also going to be on there. So I'm going to do this one with you, but then I want you to be able to do the next one by yourself. So I'm going to take x2. All right, first thing I'm going to do is label my points, x1, y1, x2, y2. So then I am going to take x2 minus x1, that's 4 minus 1. And then I'm going to take y2, 8, minus a negative 4. And that's where you've got to realize you can have double a negative. So minus minus means that it's going to be plus. So 4 minus 1 is 3. 8 minus a negative 4 is plus plus, change, that's 12. So that's 9 squared, that's 9, plus 144 is 153, and then we take the square root, sorry, keeps doing that, the square root of 153, which is approximately 12.37. As of right now, I'm rounding everything to 2 decimal places. You'll have to pay attention to the test or quiz. A lot of times I do just do 1 decimal place, but I'll let you know. So I'd like you to, I'm going to copy the distance formula for you. I'll give it to you. You need to write it down. I want you to practice doing this one on your own. Pause the video, try it, see if you get the same answer as me. Again, I hope you are pausing the video and trying it on your own, not just copying down exactly what I have. So again, we're taking 4 minus 2. We're going to take negative 1 minus 3. That's 2 squared. Negative minus a negative is more negative, but when I square a negative, it is positive, so it's the square root of 20, and that's 4.47. Again, another practice problem. Pause the video. Make sure you're a champ. I'm not going to give you the formula. You should have it written down somewhere else by now. So go ahead and please do this all by yourself. Pause the video. And then you should see that you'll get 11 minus a negative 7. That's a double negative. That's 18. You should have got that. That's 3 minus a negative 2. That's double negative again. So that's 3 plus 2. That's 5. We add them both together and we get the square root of 349. If you haven't found the square root button yet, hopefully you asked, or it's on the left-hand side of the yellow calculators. And hopefully you know how to put that in. Okay, on this problem, it's nothing harder than using the distance formula. The only problem is sometimes they become tedious because you have to do the distance formula more than once. And in this problem, I tell you, if player A, which is down here, and if you can't see the numbers, it's 8, 4, throws the ball to B, B throws the ball to guy C, here's B and C. So I want to know how far the ball traveled. Distance is length, distance is travel. Distance always has to be positive. So I'm going from A to B. So that's going to be my distance from A to B. And then I'm going from B to C. So I'm just doing 2 distances, and once I have my answers, I'm going to add them up. I'd like you to pause the video and try to do the distances by yourself, and then come back to them. So after you came back, you should have got the 18 minus 8, 7 minus 4, that's 10 minus 10 squared, 3 squared, 100 plus 9, the square root of 109. When you do BC, you get 24 minus 18, you get 14 minus 7, you get 6 and 7, square them. 36 plus 49, the square root of 85. I rounded to 2 decimal places, which I should tell you in the directions. I didn't hear, but I will on any test or quiz. Since it's how far did the ball travel total, it's 10.44 plus the 9.22, so 19.66, and we are in meters. So really, your final answer should be 19.66 meters. All right, is how I'd like the final answer. Number 7 is going to be exactly the same exact thing. Same exact thing, except you're going to have to find the perimeter. So the first thing I'd like you to do is put D, O, and W somewhere on this to label the grid. So D is 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. DW. All right, I didn't change them. O, 5, -2, and W, -3 over 3 up 2. So I'm going to label these. If I can find somewhere to write D, O, and W. And if you can remember perimeter, if I make this a triangle, perimeter is simply around the outside, around the outside, around the outside. So all I need to do is find the lengths of each side, DO, OW, and WD. I understand it's tedious, it's a lot of work, but once you get good at the distance formula, you'll see you can kind of pick up on it. So I'd like you, well, I'll do this one together because there's an example right after it, exact same thing. So the first distance I'm going to do is DO, and I just picked it because it's there. So DO involves these 2 points. So I'm going to take, I labeled this one X1, Y1, this one X2, Y2. And so I'm going to get 5 minus 3 and -2 minus 6. Please be careful. The biggest mistake is subtracting negatives. So I get 2, I get -8 because negative and negative makes more negative. I get 4 plus 64, the square root of 68. So I'm going to leave it. I've been rounding everything to 2 decimal places. Then I'm going to do OW, which is here, and I'm going to get OW, which is here. So I took -3 minus 5. I took 2 minus a -2. Again, double. So just watch your double negatives when I get here because it's 2 minus -2. And if I change those signs, that becomes 4. And I get 64 because -8 squared is positive. So it's 64 plus 16 is 80. And the square root is about 8.94. So that's OW. And then, of course, I still have DW left. So I'm going to do DW now. And I'm going to take -3 minus 3, which is over here. I'm going to take 2 minus 6. So if that's correct, I add negative, so that's 6. I subtract, I get -4, but that's okay because when I square it, it's positive. 36 plus 16, square root of 52. So now that I have my 3 distances, and please guys, if this was a test or quiz, you've got to realize that this has got to be a 4 or 5 point problem. So it's not a problem that you want to just ignore and skip because it seems like a lot of work. I'm going to give a point for this distance, a point for this distance, a point for this one, and then your final answer, since it's perimeter, is adding them all up together. So 8.24, 8.94, and 7.21 added together is 24.39. Okay, and then I'd like you to just take a second, pause the video, and do exactly what we just did for this one. So you're going to have to do NI, IK, and NK, find all 3 distances, and add them up. Pause the video, please. Okay, and if I just did them real quick, I didn't even show my work, but NK came out to be the square root of 98, square root of 34, square root of 102, and therefore added up the perimeter's 25.93. Hopefully you have a good understanding of distance, and really we are done